Unlock the secrets, learn new tactics, and build a winning strategy to win the aging game. Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan.
Welcome to episode 3, Empowering Seniors, Engaging, Caring, and Thriving in the Golden Years, featuring a good friend of mine, Dr. Jacklyn Faffer, CEO, President of the Baker Senior Center. So welcome, Jackie. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
We're very excited to have you. I had the pleasure of meeting you, I guess, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago and touring your facility with Mark. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. I think the work that you guys do there is really remarkable. And obviously, we all know I shouldn't go out in the community because I cry easily. So I cried 3 times when I was there. Not because it was sad. I would like to make sure everyone knows that. Because it was really touching. I know you've been there.
Yep.
But we went upstairs and they were having a music therapy class, and it was really beautiful. They were doing Sound of Music. It was really fun. The volunteers in there were remarkable. I felt like everybody was happy, engaging, and it was really nice to see that. I don't get out, I guess, too much of the office and engage with, clients and seniors. So it was really nice to experience that, and I thank you very much for that.
We loved having you, and you covered just what everyone says about it, how surprised they are that it's so bright and cheerful and everyone is having a good time.
Yeah, I meet clients from time to time, and I encourage them to do different things or support groups or attend, a variety of things. And sometimes they'll say to me, well, I don't want to do anything that's sad. And I'm like, no, nothing has to be sad. You meet great people, you build a community, you have support. But I can understand that. My grandmother lived in a senior living community, and I did find that very sad. However, I was a child, and I think I didn't understand properly. But as an adult, to see things like this and to see that was moving, that was positive, that was engaging, and that's really making a difference in their lives. And I hope that people take the time to explore that and not make a judgment or a decision without really seeing it. It was beautiful. The other favorite part that I had there was the garden. The garden was amazing.
Well, it's really why we encourage people who are thinking about using our services, people who are thinking about referring to us, to come out and see us. And then you see the reality of how we're not your everyday senior center.
What a great asset and resource for our community. And so it's wonderful. I know we're kind of going off script a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about the journey of the Baker Center and how it is that it is today?
Absolutely. I love to talk about this. So about 12 years ago, I got a call from a colleague of mine in Boston who was looking for a senior center in Naples. And I was new to the community, and I thought to myself, well, I don't know why he can't just look online and find one. So I told him I'd call him back. I looked online, and sure enough, I found there were no senior centers in Collier County. So to make a long story short, we commissioned FGCU Division of Social Work to do a study to make sure there really was a need for a senior center. And there was, and we opened our doors in January of 2014 to 80 individuals. Today, our membership is 2,200.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
We're very proud of it, and we're thrilled to be able to provide this service to the community.
And I remember back in the Irma time, you all were serving meals and helping people who were homeless and didn't have any resources at all. And
yes, that's exactly what we did through our case management program. And then during the pandemic, we pivoted, to use the trite word, to a completely virtual platform. However, we continued to deliver meals to everyone who came to our center for a hot lunch.
Wow.
And we also took a leadership role, as you may recall, and provided 7,400 vaccines in the early days of the COVID vaccine.
Wow, that's remarkable.
That's great.
You mentioned homelessness and the meals. And I have to say, I think one of the first stops we did on the tour with Mark was down to where your food pantry is. And walking in there and seeing that people could come in and get that stuff was really empowering. And then when we came out, he opened up these cupboards and in it was all these toiletries and everything you could dream of. And he started telling us about the amount of homeless seniors, specifically women in our area, and that need. And I thought that was really shocking. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not aware of that or what, but that was really stunning to me, and that was something that I really I would love to learn a little bit more about, and how we could help support that, because to know that there's seniors out there that are homeless or don't have access to these items was really, really heartbreaking.
You're really touching upon what makes Baker Senior Center unique among senior centers in the United States. We are more than an activity center, which is our first floor of our 30,000 square foot building, but we provide the social services and mental health services and programs for cognitive health, whereas it's very unusual to find everything under one roof. Right now, we're working with 30 senior homeless women,
Wow.
Wow.
and that's probably a podcast unto itself.
Probably it is.
What's one thing that we could do, our listeners could do, to help those 30 women?
Well, first of all, awareness is so important. We know that Naples is a paradise, but it's really a tale of two cities. And the 30 women we work with were not always homeless. They're not what we call chronically homeless. These are people who are situationally homeless. Maybe they lost their homes due to Hurricane Ian. Maybe they lost their homes because they worked in low paying jobs and then, as they got older, could no longer work and didn't have any savings. So, first of all, awareness that there are homeless senior women in Naples, and funding is always important. We're in a position where we often have to help them with first and last month's rent. We also, for our 30 women, we have them belong to the rec centers so that they have a place to shower and keep clean, and we will pay for that membership. So, funding is always the name of the game, unfortunately, for us nonprofits, but awareness as well.
And so people can make a donation to the Baker Center
Yes, yes.
for specifically homeless, for the homeless.
Specifically homeless, yes.
Great.
Oh, that's remarkable. Well, definitely, I think before we dive into all of this, I know it's my fault I skipped ahead, but I'm so excited to have you here today and
Thank you.
get into this topic. But um, last week's episode, we had Bill Diamond from the Carlisle. And so I had two questions come in from listeners, and I wanted to just touch on those real quick and get your feedback. So the first was from Curleen, and I got to put my glasses on because I'm blind. So her question was, she says, Bill was great and his community sounds fabulous. However, as we're exploring many communities in Southwest Florida, can you give us some tips as to what we should expect from all communities?
So, first of all, keep those questions coming. We love this question. So, keep those questions coming. Great question. There are over 100 senior living communities in our area, and each one of them are completely different. And I think when people visit the different senior living communities, they are pleasantly surprised. We are blessed in this area to have some very, very nice senior living communities. It doesn't need to be the last stop. These communities are amenity rich, and so they have, some have golf courses, pools, theaters, restaurants, multi different restaurants, nice size apartments, different financial arrangements. And so there's that question is probably a podcast by itself too. But there's just a lot of variety out there, which is great for the consumer because there's a lot to choose from. Keeps me very busy because I help people figure out the differences. But there's just a lot of amenity rich communities. People are moving from country club communities and they have high expectations and they're there.
Is there like one thing that you think should be universally expected everywhere?
So basically, there's a package of amenities or services. So all of them provide meals, housekeeping, transportation, include utilities. So there's sort of this package, which I would call, senior living 101. And so all the communities include this package of amenities: meals, housekeeping, transportation. But it's important that people peel away the onion, the layers of the onion on that, because it's just not, meals are one thing, but can you invite your guests for meals? What's the menu like? So can you, you know, can they work with special diets? So there's just, each amenity and each service has different levels, but that package is consistent in all senior living communities.
All right, good stuff. Let's see what Josephine had to say. So Josephine's from Estero, and she says, during the episode, you briefly touched on different license types. Can you break this down more simply as to how and why that would impact me?
And I know Josephine. So, hi, Josephine. So, a great question. And so, this is a very confusing thing out there, in that in assisted living, there are three basic types of licenses: standard, LNS, which is called limited nursing services, and ECC, which stands for extended congregate care. And so those are different. And basically, standard license in assisted living is the bare minimum. And what happens often when people move to a standard assisted living uh, place, many times because of that licensure, they're going to have to move out when they need higher levels of care. And compared to an LNS or an ECC, where they're able to provide nursing services at at a higher level within that assisted living, and they're able to stay and age in place, the standard license is very limited in what they can provide. The ECC allows the assisted living to provide actual nursing services for the residents of that facility. And so it's a higher level. There's a staffing requirement. There's more surveys that the state does through ACA. And so, it's just a higher level of care within the assisted living, which is really a good thing, because that slows down the need for someone to go into a nursing home. So if you can stay in a residential setting versus a clinical setting, typically people recover better, and they're happier. So the ECC is an important distinction between all of them.
So is that a question that if someone, obviously someone should be using your services and never be going into a facility alone. But if they, made that misstep and went by themselves, would they just ask what type of license do you have?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Seth, and you can look at that. You can look online, but that would be one of my first questions. What is your license? Is it standard? And obviously, a place that has a standard license, they may exaggerate a little bit about what they can do and what they can't do. But there's legal requirements. There's legal definitions of exactly what that assisted living is permitted to do. And it's a cost saving from a standard license versus an ECC. It costs more for staffing. It costs more for what you do. So you might expect to pay a little bit more in an ECC license, but ultimately you're able to stay there longer. But yes, that is a easy question for someone to ask right off the bat.
A number of years ago, I had a potential client come to me who was living in a community, and his family, his adult children, actually came to us because he had had a change in condition and couldn't feed himself anymore. And they were telling him that wasn't a service he could provide. So they were exploring bringing him home and home care. He ended up moving to another community. But I think that was the first time I realized there was a difference.
Look at you using community in that facility.
Aren't you proud?
I'm very proud.
You're teaching me well. I learn, but it just takes a while. But yeah, I thought that was something you would want to know going in, because I wouldn't want to go somewhere, have some sort of change in condition, and then have to move. Or
moving once is hard enough. And so, if you can move somewhere, and the likelihood that you can stay there and longer versus you're going to get booted out, I would say, that's an important part of this equation.
Yeah.
So, can they do a feeding tube? Probably not. But can they assist someone in feeding? Yes.
It's tough out there. Growing old isn't always as glamorous as.
No.
But you can make it fun and beautiful.
And that's what Baker Senior Center is all about.
Yes.
There
fun
you
and
go.
Beautiful. I love
There
it.
you go.
Okay, well, I'm a nerd for numbers. So I have an interesting one today since our topic is senior centers. So I found this one at the National Council of Aging. And it said today there's more than 100,000 senior centers that are serving 1 million older adults. And what I thought was interesting about this is that they were classifying older adults as 50 and above. So in 8 years, I can come to the Baker Senior Center.
I'm sorry, but we classify it as 60 and above.
Oh, darn it.
We'd make an exception for you.
Thank you. Then it said approximately 70% of senior center participants are women. And then it said 75% of members visit their center 1 to 3 times a week for an average of 3.3 hours. What do you think of those numbers?
I think they're pretty on target.
Really?
And I would say that if we drilled down and looked at our stats, we would see the same thing. Now, of course, we have people who come to us every day and actually look at us as their home away from home. We're open from 9 to 5 days a week. And then we have people who come to us once a week. They come for our lunch. We have a hot lunch that serves 400 people in 2 seatings on Wednesday. And some people are happy to just come for the camaraderie of that lunch.
That's what I would.
What a great thing. I thought that number was low. To say there's only 10,000 senior centers in the United States, to me, that seems low.
See. I gotta get the calculator.
Of that number, there are 111 that are accredited
Okay.
by the National Council on Aging. And I'm proud to say we're one of that 111.
Of course you are.
Of course. So if we divided it just by 50 states, that's about 200 per state. I think that in some states, like obviously Rhode Island, that's tiny. They probably have 2. In California, more. But that it seemed, I thought there would have been more. I think maybe the stats we hear on other things are always these like high numbers. Maybe that's what it is. But then to hear that it was, 1 million older adults, I kind of thought that was low too. But I don't know.
So good stuff.
Interesting stuff. But more women than men come.
Yes, there are more women. And that is just demographically the way it shakes down.
Well, you guys outlive us anyway.
Yeah, so. You stole it from me. I was going to say we're living longer.
That's awesome. All the stress you all create.
Well, I mean, come on, we are demanding. We're kind of a pain in the butt. I'm sure there's a couple people that can attest to that for me, but we keep you young mentally.
That you do. That you do.
All right, well, good stuff. I'm excited to get into it with Jackie today.
Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, providing exceptional in-home care. At Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, we believe that you and your loved ones deserve nothing but the best. Our team of highly trained nurses and caregivers are committed to delivering the highest standard of in-home care. We offer a wide range of both medical and non-medical services to cater to your specific needs. From companion care and personal care to skilled nursing and therapy services, our professional care team is here to meet your needs, both now and in the future. Bright Star Care is proud to provide the highest quality of care and prioritize in-home safety. We are accredited by the Joint Commission, and all care is overseen by a registered nurse. With Bright Star Care, you can have peace of mind knowing that your loved one is in the best hands. To learn more about Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, visit us online at brightstarcare.com or give us a call at 239-992-4779. We are available 24/7 to answer any questions you may have. Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, where exceptional care meets compassion. Locally owned and operated since 2006.
Let's kind of start off and talk about the Baker Center and talk about what programs you provide to engage your members, and especially if somebody's new and they don't know anything about what's going on there. How do you get that person involved with the different activities and engaging them in different things?
Hey, wait a second. You stole my first question. I got to ask my favorite question that I ask everybody.
Okay, go for it.
Don't be a thief. Okay, my favorite question I ask everybody. What is something you know today about the industry you're in that you wish you knew sooner?
I think of the industry I'm in as serving seniors. And I wish I knew when I was early on in my career the importance of community and connection. We're hardwired to be with other people. We're social animals. And that's why isolation and loneliness, which I don't even think I thought much of many years ago, is so important. And it is, in fact, the reason why we started the Baker Senior Center. Before COVID, when I would talk about isolation and loneliness affecting people, not just emotionally, but physically as well, people's eyes would kind of glaze over. Now, we all know what it's like to feel isolated and alone because we experienced it during the pandemic. So everything Baker Senior Center does has a component, a major component, of addressing the isolation and loneliness of the aging game, to use your words.
Oh, look at that. I like it.
You know, it's so that it's interesting because we really didn't talk about that, you know, when before COVID and everything, and people wanted to stay at home and they just rode out the storm basically, and they didn't, you really never talked about being isolated and depressed and how important it is to engage with other people.
One was almost afraid to admit it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it sounds like there's something wrong with us if we're lonely.
Oh, yeah.
But 1 in 3 adults, older adults in the United States, wakes up feeling alone.
That's
Wow,
so sad.
that's sad.
That's really sad. That's one of us.
Well,
you know, there's 3 of us, so one of us is waking up.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, we've got season 3.
I got my
now.
dogs.
Yeah,
my dogs keep me company. So.
Oh, that's so sad to think of it like that, though. You know, I don't want anyone to wake up sad.
So going back to my question.
Yeah, now you're allowed to speak.
Now I'm allowed.
No.
See there,
Go for
that's
you.
the added stress. So I just lost years of my life, but so can you talk about what you do for your members to get them engaged, and especially somebody who is new, walks through the front door of the Baker Center and like, what do I do?
So what's interesting and unique about the Baker Center is that we really have 3 unique programs, 3 discrete programs. One is the Senior Center itself, which is the hub of all the activities. That's where people come to join and meet other people, play music, do artwork, listen to lectures. And that's where we have 2,200 members.
Wow.
In addition to a credentialed staff, we have 320 vetted and trained volunteers. And we have volunteers staffing, for lack of a better word, every program downstairs in the Senior Center. So they are there to not only facilitate the art or the music classes or give the lectures, they are there to help that new person feel at home and comfortable.
Wow.
So is there a sort of an intake when someone walks through the front door and someone
Yes.
says,
Yes.
what are you here for?
Yeah, welcome.
Well, we know why they're there.
Yeah.
But first of all, we have someone who meets with all prospective members. You can't join online and you can't join on the phone because we have to make sure that the Senior Center is right for you. If you have dementia and your caregiver thinks that they can drop you off to spend the day there, that's the program upstairs. We have a respite program. The Senior Center, one has to be able to spend the day and participate in the activities on their own. So it starts with a tour, and after the tour, either a volunteer or one of the staff members will sit down with the prospective member, answer any questions, and then they fill out an application. Our membership fee at this point is $100 a year, and that includes all the first floor activities.
Wow.
We have a cafe, and we don't charge for the cafe. We have snacks and coffee, cold drinks, fresh fruit. We have a lunch, as I mentioned before, and we just started charging $5 a person for the lunch. Now, one of the things we're most proud of is no one is ever turned away from any of our services if they can't pay. So we have scholarships available. And we have 20% of our members who are at or below the poverty line.
Mm.
And that's why we have the scholarships.
Great.
Wow. All right. I wanted to talk a little bit about caregiver burnout. This is something that, especially as I'm working with the Medicare Guide program, this has been a topic that just is really at the forefront of everything I'm doing. So, what are some common challenges that caregivers face when taking care of seniors, and how can we help them prevent or manage caregiver burnout? Or what do you guys do that helps that as well?
Now I'm going upstairs to our second floor to our Brookdale Cognitive Health Services. We have 70 individuals who are at the mid to moderate stage of dementia, and each one has a caregiver. And most likely it's a spouse, it could be an adult child, it could be a sibling. In addition to the respite groups that we have a very vibrant caregiver support program. And this is broken down into caregiver groups, caregiver socialization, and caregiver education. And when you think about a three-faceted program, then we know in answer to your question, there are lots of challenges. One is never prepared for it. And the most important thing to do is, first of all, try to have a realistic view of what you can and cannot do. And don't feel that you have to take on this responsibility alone, because you cannot. There's a whole village out there. There are organizations like us. There are home health care agencies. There's the Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Support Network. We're all there to support our caregivers. The most important thing, I think, knowledge is power. So it's important to understand what the person you're caring for, what the trajectory of their illness might be, what special needs they might have. It's important to get help at home if you need it. And it's important to understand when the person you're caring for might be able to be left on their own for an hour or so, and when it's not safe. So education and support are the two keys.
So, what happens if someone doesn't have a caregiver?
Well, if someone has dementia and doesn't have a caregiver, they will be best served in a memory care unit
Okay.
where they're safe as the disease progresses. Of course, in the early stage, when it's something that has just perhaps begun, they don't have to be there. But if they need a caregiver, if the disease progresses, either cognitively to the point where they're not safe alone, or physically, if they are in a wheelchair 24/7 and they can't manage their own care, then they either have to have a caregiver or they're best living in a senior community that can meet their needs.
And have you seen a correlation between different activities and programs that stimulate people who have dementia and how the way to promote their well-being?
Here's where it gets kind of sticky. And I'll talk about our dementia respite program, which is a 4-hour structured program, 10:30 to 2:30, for someone who has mild to moderate dementia. They're still living at home with a caregiver. We're really here to help keep them at home as long as possible. They spend 4 hours with us, totally engaged. They laugh, they talk to each other, they sing, they do art, they do crafts, they do reminiscence activities, and they're really happy during those 4 hours. I would love to say to you, Bruce, that this can slow down the disease, or yes, this makes a difference in the disease. But sadly, it doesn't. The difference it makes is that for 4 hours, these individuals are part of a community. They have people that they interact with. There are no wrong answers. They can give the craziest answer in the world, and it's okay. They smile. We had a volunteer tell us that she loves being a volunteer in these groups because she sees the person with dementia walking in. They're kind of shuffling and they're sad and they're looking down. And within 20 minutes, they're smiling, they're talking, and they're happy.
Wow.
But it doesn't last.
No.
But it is beautiful to see in the music class that I watched. What was the gal's name that was playing the guitar?
We have 2 certified music therapists, and it was either Paula or Marissa.
Marissa.
And all research shows music, if you're cognitively impaired, is the key to everything good.
She was remarkable. I mean, she walked in with her guitar and she was happy and bubbly and singing the song, and to look around the room, you know, it was big square room and they're on all the wall, and everybody was smiling, everyone was happy, everyone was singing. I mean, I don't know, it was really beautiful. And to see that, I can understand that volunteers comment, because I would say I didn't see them come in, but I do see, you know, they kind of have that down feeling when we people, and then you see them singing and they're smiling.
Did you cry?
I did. Of course I did. But I tried to pretend like I wasn't. I wore my glasses, but it doesn't help.
We knew.
Yeah, everyone knows because I'm a sap.
Every group has a theme. So it's a 4-hour structured group based on a theme. And the theme is carried out. So I don't remember what it was that day. It might have been entertainment or theater or something. But the music is always the last part of the program, because they go home then in a much more upbeat mood. And it's so significant for someone with dementia that the music therapist can play the first 1 or 2 beats of the song, and they'll know what it is.
Yeah, she did.
It's remarkable. I think you saw that.
I had a client that, you know, couldn't tell you what he had for breakfast, but I could sit down and play chess with him, and he beat me in chess.
Yeah.
So
the mind is amazing. The brain is amazing.
I'm curious, have you tried the virtual helmet things? Have you tried that at all?
I got to know.
Are you talking about the virtual dementia tour?
No.
Or are you talking about for the actual clients?
Like the goggles?
The goggles.
No, we have not.
I was just curious if people would freak out with that, or
I freaked out.
Yeah.
You know, what we're doing works so well.
Yeah.
We're going to be old school and stick to it.
Yeah.
And it is evidence-based. We're the only program of its kind in Southwest Florida. And we charge $55 a session for this program. But again, we have scholarships if you can't afford it. So no one is ever turned away.
Speaking of the virtual reality stuff, Senta, who both of you know, buys these VR goggles for us in the office. And we've been playing games, whatever. So yesterday she says, oh, all the kids are playing this game. You got to play it. So she puts them on me. I almost passed out and threw up. Yeah. So yeah, my recommendation is don't put it on any adult, because I don't like that falling sensation.
Mm-mm.
And this was some game where you could pick something up, but I don't know, you could float. And I came down and I really felt like I was falling down. It was the freakiest thing I've ever done. So I'm going to stick to checkers and
old school.
Yeah, Candy Crush or, you know, Candyland, whatever, Monopoly. So what kind of things do you guys do there that helps seniors stay healthy, active in the physical sense, physical activity?
We have many physical exercise classes in our wellness programs. Tai Chi, of course, is remarkably strengthening for seniors. We have chair yoga. We have line dancing. And a story I like to tell, when we opened our new building a year and a half ago, the pastor from the church across the street called me and he said, I would love to volunteer. I said, that would be great. What would you like to do? He said, I'd like to teach karate. And I said, oh, no, you don't understand. Of course, having stereotypes. This is a senior center. He said, well, that's okay because I teach karate for older adults. So we took him up on it, and it is one of our
That's awesome.
most well-attended classes.
That's awesome.
So
we
fun.
also have lectures on nutrition and well-being. We have, as you mentioned, the garden. And in the garden, we grow vegetables and herbs, and then we will have a cooking class on how to use those vegetables and herbs in a healthy way. So we are all about how to stay healthy. We just had the Ave Maria nursing class rotate through and do blood pressure and vital sign checks in our cafe. So I don't think you could be a senior center and meet the needs of seniors without focusing on physical health.
It was interesting, Susan. You were talking about, the caregivers, and I'm sure, Dr. Faffer, you see this in that when people come and see you all and come to the Baker Center, the caregiver is able to be a spouse
Mm-hmm.
and kind of take down the shields of being a caregiver and being a husband or a wife.
Absolutely. And that's so important because your role does change when you become a caregiver. Because as much as we say it shouldn't be, it becomes your primary role. Because if you're truly the caregiver for your loved one, that should be uppermost on your mind. So when they come downstairs while their loved ones are in respite and they take an art class or they're doing line dancing, they can let their hair down. And it's a wonderful thing to
That's
see.
great.
It has to be so important to do that. I think taking all those things on are difficult.
When we talked about caregiving, it's so important to take care. The caregiver has to care for him or herself. Put your oxygen mask on first, because if the caregiver isn't doing that, then there are going to be two people who need support.
I was with a client yesterday, and we had that conversation, and the gentleman had a type of Parkinson's, and they're in their 70s, so they're young, and I'm like, you got to take care of yourself. And I was talking to the wife, and then I said, you got to, because if something happens to you, you guys are up a creek. And so, it's important to have that conversation. And I mentioned the Baker Center, and I'm going to mention it again to them. And they said, well, my husband has a hard time meeting people. And it's like, you got to get there. Can you talk about, like, how do you promote socialization with your members, and what programs you have involved to engage people more?
We have a lot of groups. And when we talked about statistics in the beginning, and we talked about how there are more women than men, we have a group called Guy Time. Now, how did that start? Early on, 8 years ago, when we were at our place on Castello Drive, a couple of men approached us and said, listen, we want to be able to talk among ourselves. And when we're in the co-ed groups, we don't get to say a word in edgewise. We knew that was an exaggeration, but we started a group called Guy Time. It is facilitated by one of our members, and it's extremely well attended, and they sit around and just shoot the breeze. Our educational lectures all have time before and after for socialization. And of course, there's asking questions. We have 2 current events clubs. But mostly, if you come and see us and you see our cafe, people are just sitting around and talking. And then on Wednesdays, in between our 2 lunches, we have karaoke. And that's really something to see because everybody's a rock star in karaoke.
Something I've never done is karaoke.
Let's go over there and do it.
Well, I think that should be another one of the podcasts.
I'm not sure. I don't think we'll have any listeners for that one.
You never know. They might tune in just to laugh at us.
So will you let us know, like, the address of the Baker Center? Because
6200 Autumn Oaks Lane, and we are on 13.7 acres. Beautiful campus, beautiful landscaping, bright and airy building, and come and visit.
I think the building is beautiful. I love when you walk in, straight ahead. The art is on the wall from the members,
Yes.
and it's really it's actually very good. I can't draw anything beyond a stick person, and I was very impressed with all the artwork.
And you're open to all races, religions, demographics across the board.
You have to be 60 and above, and we're open.
Wow.
So a lot of times people are resistant to different things as they age. So how would you, what advice would you give to someone that maybe themselves are resistant or hesitant, or their significant other is hesitant or resistant?
Well, my background is clinical social work, so I ask a lot of questions. And my suggestion would be to find out what the resistance is about. And then sometimes you can address that specifically. But sometimes you have to say, just come and try it. just come and see what it's all about, because it probably isn't what you think it is.
Yeah. What do you think is maybe a top reason that people might be hesitant?
I think there are two types of reasons. One is that person who really is uncomfortable being in social settings. And maybe in the past, maybe they've lost their spouse, and it was the spouse who always made the connections and was the cruise director, for lack of a better word. That person really has to be eased into it, and the best way to do that is if a buddy could come with them. Or if it's someone who may be in our case management program, we'll have the case manager come in with them and kind of hold their hand through the process. Another reason is the perception of what a senior center is. My own mom, may she rest in peace, when she moved into Century Village in Boca Raton, she says, I don't like to be around all these old people. She was 84. But it's the perception. I jokingly say, tongue-in-cheek, we don't play bingo. And that means we're not what you think of as a typical senior center. So the best way to address it is to just bring them to see it, encourage them to see it. It becomes more challenging, let's say, for some of our other programs, our dementia respite program. It's very hard for someone who's in those early stages to admit to themselves that they may have an issue and they don't want to come. But again, same thing, have them try it.
So when you, and I encounter a lot of this when people rely on the person who has dementia to make important decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what advice do you have for someone who is relying on their spouse to make these important decisions and that person can't? And you're saying, honey, let's go to the Baker Center. Let's go check it out. And the person with dementia is like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Keep me home. What can you do?
That is part of the hardest challenges we face, because if you can get other people, like an adult child who's involved, then, 2 against 1, it can help. If it can be a trusted friend or maybe the doctor, that can help. But sometimes we've had situations where the spouse just gets them in the car and brings them over.
Yeah.
And we have a video on our website of someone whose husband absolutely refused to come. So she brought him over. We did the assessment, because we do a cognitive assessment on all prospective clients. And then, kicking and screaming, he came to the first group. And when they left, he said to her, I really like that. I think I'll come again next year. And she said, honey,
Okay.
You're coming Thursday.
That's awesome.
I love that. I'll come next year.
Yeah.
No,
That's
coming
great.
tomorrow.
Sometimes you got to rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have to.
So let's see. I'm blind. So how can technology be utilized to enhance senior engagement and quality of life? I have to say, in the tour, I was remarkably surprised that you have a computer room. And while I love all the ideas of whatever they need, it was really remarkable. Mark had mentioned, like, if you have a problem with your phone, you can come, they'll help you, all these things. So are you seeing technology being a big thing? Do you guys incorporate it?
Again, let's think about COVID for a minute.
Yeah.
We did everything from a virtual platform, which means we had many, many members and clients who didn't really use computers before. And we helped them become comfortable with computers, because we did all of our programs via Zoom. Today, what we see are seniors who are coming in and they want to learn to use their new iPhone, their iPad, all different devices. Some to do web searching, and some to do kinds of intellectually stimulating things. But the majority want to learn how to FaceTime with their grandchildren. They want to learn how to text. And, they might have a very fancy smartphone, but really all they need is the old-fashioned flip phone if they just want to use it as a phone. But we have a beautiful technology center, and it's busiest on Wednesdays when we have our weekly lunch. People make appointments to meet with someone before or after. And that's the other thing. We have a number of volunteers who are tech experts, but it requires an appointment. So they'll meet you there and work with you. And we have some who come in every week and work with their volunteer. And I'd like to think they're getting more and more proficient. And it's good to see.
It's wild. For the first time ever this year, I had a client text me. Like,
really?
Yeah, not an adult child, not like
Yeah.
the actual client patient. Yeah, and still texts me all the time. I'll send him invoices or whatever. He'll say, don't email me, text me. I want to text you.
That's how today is. It's just how it is.
I guess I never thought that that day would come, but it's remarkable. If I could get my mother to text, that would be great.
So, can you talk more about nutrition and the importance of nutrition, and not only socially, but nutritionally, why people, and the services you all do at the Baker Center to make sure people are eating right and doing all the right things?
Well, our food pantry is a senior-friendly food pantry because there, too, we serve 60 and over. And we have low salt items. We have low sugar items. That's not to say we don't have sweets and things that you shouldn't have. And since it's a choice pantry, they come in and shop for their food, choose what they want one at a time. We're not going to say stop taking those marshmallows. But we all know the importance of nutrition now in terms of heart disease and other kinds of illnesses. We bring in nutritionists to do lectures, and we just encourage healthy living.
The food pantry was really remarkable. It was very diverse. You have everything in there. You mentioned healthy snacks, candies. There was pancakes and syrup. I noticed that right away. So I thought it was really, and I loved that you mentioned it's a choice pantry, and I hadn't seen anything like that before. That's really unique.
We've had the food pantry since even before we opened the senior center, and it's always been a choice pantry. And the other thing that we do is we encourage appointments because people who are asking for help with food, it's very difficult for them. And we don't want anyone to be embarrassed by seeing anyone they know. The food pantry is located in the rear of the building. It has its own entrance. One makes an appointment. They're brought in by a case manager or a specially trained volunteer. You'll never see a line waiting for food. And the food that's in there, as you saw, is food that you and I would eat.
Mm-hmm.
They're given some shopping bags, public shopping bags, and they come in and they shop for what they want. They just take what they want. And you can come twice a week. You can come once a week.
And can you donate food items?
Bruce, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Segue. We are dependent upon donations from the community. Many communities have food drives for us. Banks have food drives for us. And you can donate funds because if we run low on something, we purchase it. We never want the food pantry to have bare shelves. Food that we request are shelf-stable foods, in date, not dented. And we also work with Collier Harvest and Cheney Brothers, and we have fresh fruits and vegetables in our refrigerated part of the food pantry. Susan, you mentioned toiletries.
Mm-hmm.
A big need are adult diapers, hygiene items like toilet paper, paper towels, because believe it or not, you can't get those things with food stamps. So that's a big need.
Really?
And we have shampoo and body lotion. Some organizations do special drives around the holidays and put together beautiful toiletry baskets that we give out as gifts.
That's remarkable. So you said food stamps doesn't cover.
Food stamps covers food.
Oh, I guess literally in the name. But yeah, you can't get toiletries. That's so sad. Well, I think we should change that.
So, all right. So
I'm going to make
that's another
toiletry
podcast.
stamps.
So you mentioned the holidays, and I just want to, because we're fast approaching the holidays, right around the corner. So do you all do anything special for the holidays? Or
Of course. We have holiday parties that acknowledge all of the holidays. We have a Christmas tree as well as a menorah. There are different temples and churches that, quote unquote, adopt a senior, and we will tell them the details of this senior without the name, of course, but things that they might need, and they'll make customized gift baskets and boxes for the seniors. When you come in around the holiday time, our offices look like, I don't know, it looks like what Santa Claus sitting at Macy's used to look like with all the gifts around him. It's really beautiful.
That's awesome.
I love that. I was going to ask if you guys had the Adopt a Senior. I think that's always something that's very nice and very...
Everything we do is customized. So if a service organization or a club or a house of worship calls us and says, I have a group that would like to adopt a senior or would like to do something, we'll ask them what they're thinking of doing and we will make it happen.
Wow.
Because, sadly, seniors were not always on the agenda in this community. And when I started traveling down this path with Baker Senior Center 10, 11 years ago, my goal was not only to have the senior center and all its activities, it was to put seniors on the agenda. Seniors have needs too. It's not the end of the road. And that's happened. That's happened. Not as much as I'd like to see it happen. I wish we could have a wine festival for seniors. But people more and more now are saying, how can we help?
It's good.
That's great.
Obviously everybody always loves children and animals, and I love those causes too, but I love seniors more. So I would do anything for them. So you've told a couple, I guess, success stories kind of through this, but is there one or two that you could share that, you've had where it's really made a big impact or something that would be inspiring to share to our listeners?
Yes, I'll tell you one from the first day we opened our doors 10 years ago. And then I'll tell you one more recently. When we opened our doors to 80 initial members just for lunch that day, the first woman to walk through the doors looked really hesitant and shy. And she told me she lived in a gated community, but her husband had passed away 2 years ago. And this was the first time she'd be having lunch with other people. And she was kind of nervous. She sat down at a round table for 10, not knowing anyone. The following week, she comes in and early, and I see her putting her sweater on one chair, her napkin on another chair, her purse on another. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm saving seats for my friends. And I said, your friends? She said, yes, the friends I had lunch with last week.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Nothing much more you can say about that. And then another, there are so many stories, but another story I'll tell is of someone who was taking an art class. And she said, just as I've heard you say, that she had no art talent at all. And she had the talent, but she just never tried. So she actually painted a painting that was shown in a juried art show, and it was sold.
Wow. That's awesome. Oh, Susan's crying again. That's awesome.
These things, I think this is what I would love people to know and see, that
it's, I've been in the field a while, and I've always worked with vulnerable populations because that's what you do in social work. This is the best thing I've ever done.
So let's talk about the future. So are there, what's on the horizon for the Baker Center?
Just to continue doing more of what we're doing, to continue to be better and better at it, to reach more and more people. Our newest program is our geriatric mental health program that we started a year ago. And that's because people were calling us, telling us they needed mental health counseling, or they said they needed to talk to someone. They couldn't afford to go to private practitioners because they didn't take insurance. Their situations weren't as severe as one would need to be a patient at David Lawrence. So we did a little research. We put together a model, presented it to the board. We are on Medicare panels. We're on all the private insurance panels. And in the year that we've been open, we've seen over 60 older adults for mental health counseling. And the counseling is done by credentialed, licensed clinical social workers. So we saw a need, and we developed that program.
I love that.
And you know, our listeners, we have no idea where they are and where they're coming from, and some might be in Naples, and some might be sitting behind a desk and ready to write a check. So, if you had a blank check and someone said, "I want to give the Baker Center a blank check," like what would you do with that? Is there some like wish list that you wish you had funds to be able to afford to do something?
That wish list is so long that I know we don't have the time, but I'll tell you, we always need support for our programs because, again, what makes us a little bit different is all of our services, our clinical services, our dementia services, our case management services, they're all provided by credentialed professionals. And we need support for those programs. In the senior center, we go through so many art supplies. Our lunch, I would love to see our lunch funded. Our lunch costs us $20 per person, and we just began collecting $5.
Which is not covering, you know.
I would love someone to fund our lunch. We'd name it. So if someone's interested, they could just give me a call or look at our website and email me. Happy to talk to them.
Great. What is the phone number?
239-325-4444.
One more time.
239-325-4444.
Pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
It is a good one. Wow.
Anything, Susan? You want to?
No, this is remarkable. I wrote all the ideas down of all the things I think that we can do to help bring more awareness to different programs and things, especially as the holidays happen. The the homeless senior women specifically that you mentioned is something that really has touched my heart. And I would definitely like to bring that back to my team and see what we can do there. So anybody that's listening, that any of the things we talked about, I mean, there's something here that's got to touch everyone's heart. And I would imagine that anything anybody can give, whether that's time or money or supplies or whatnot, would be greatly welcomed. And I encourage everyone to find something to contribute to this, because Baker Center is really making a difference. And I saw it firsthand. And I think my entire team should tour it. I think most of them have, but anybody in my office that hasn't, I want them to all see this firsthand to really see what you're doing. And that makes a big difference.
Thank you, Susan. And as I said earlier, you have to see it to believe it and understand it.
Yeah, it's, we've always been blessed. We've talked about Mark a couple times. Mark's always visited my office and told me so much about it. He's a wonderful, wonderful representative of Baker. He's so passionate, and I have nothing but wonderful things to say about him. But as wonderful as he's described it to me, seeing it in person was a different level. And so I would encourage everyone to do that.
And can people just show up, or they need an appointment?
People can show up for a tour, but there are some tours I love to give as well. So it's best if you do call and give an appointment. Just anecdotally, I spoke to a group of concierge physicians because our dementia program is a resource that they can give their patients. And afterwards, one of the doctors came to see me. The first 10 minutes he was there, he kept saying, "Wow, I didn't think it looked like this. Wow, this wasn't what I expected." Now he can tell his patients that he's seen it and what it is.
Yeah. It's a
So
whole
come-
different perspective.
So come and visit.
Come
Yeah.
and visit.
Come and visit. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to add to this?
I think we've pretty much covered it, and
We definitely covered a
I've
lot.
had a great time.
It's great to see you. So, in closing, I just want to, it's such at the Baker Center and Jackie, what you do is so phenomenal. And so what a great resource we have in our community. And, we wish more people would come and visit and participate and contribute. Very important. It's part of the fabric of Collier County. And so be part of it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure to meet you a few weeks back and tour your beautiful facility. And it's been wonderful to have you here today to share it with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
When experience matters the most, Senior Housing Solutions uses over 30 years of industry knowledge to provide expert advice for those considering a move to a senior living community. We are the matchmakers of senior housing. Call today at 239-595-0207 for your free consultation.
Next week, I'm pretty excited. We're going to do more on safeguarding seniors and talk about how to keep you safe and avoid scams because they are everywhere.
So my big question for next week is, have you been scammed?
Yes.
And so I think all of us have in one way, one shape or form or the other. And so, you don't have to be embarrassed by being, saying yes, because we all have. I just had to change my credit card because someone got a hold of the number. So, it's important. It's a very important topic that we're going to address. And I'm sure people will find it very interesting.
The scammers are very savvy these days. I fell for one about 2-3 months ago. Got an email. I have a nurse that works for me, and she's like the nicest, sweetest gal that works for me. But she always calls me like baby, honey, sweetie. Like she's very like with her nicknames to me. So I get this email, and it's like, honey, thank you so much. I need to change my direct deposit, blah blah blah, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll stop your direct deposit, whatever. And then I was like, but next time you're in the office, fill this form out. And she's like, oh, I don't know when I'll be in the office again next. But before I had got that email, I had already stopped her direct deposit. And then she was in the office a couple days later, and I'm like, hey, you sent me this email for your direct deposit, whatever. She's like, no, I didn't. And then I went and I showed her the email, and she's like, I think that's a scam, Susan. And I'm like, no, but you always call me like honey, baby, sweetie. How would this scammer have known to do that? And I just did it.
You have people in countries out there that this is all that they do is to perfect this scamming.
I also got scammed. This one's quick and funny, but you know how I really want a raccoon? So I desperately want a pet raccoon. This has been like my dream for 4 years. My assistant found that you can have them in Florida. So I fill out the application of doing it, whatever. And she finds me this Facebook group. So I'm private messaging this person, whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, like it's $300 for a raccoon. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. Like I thought this would be like thousands of dollars, whatever. So the person's like, yeah, just send me like $150, as the deposit. So I was like, okay, but I don't have Zelle or any of that stuff. Like I'm Apple Cash only dumb. So I'm like, oh, I only have Apple Cash. She's like, okay, well, send it to this number, whatever. So I send it and I get a text back and it says, this is a potential scam. If you do it, you won't get your money back. So I text her and the scammer is like, oh, that's because I'm not a contact in your phone. And I'm like, duh, that makes total sense. Okay, $150, send it. Never heard from the person again. No. They scammed me. So if you're looking for a raccoon, don't fall for that crap.
There's a lot of stuff like puppies.
All that
but
stuff. Like, and then I was thinking like, who would scam you for $150? That's so dumb.
It's just the start of it.
Right.
Well, if you're doing 10 of those a day, because wanting a raccoon is such a fad right now, like this is a really big thing. So I'm thinking, wow, like you could do that. You make $1,000 a day, literally probably doing nothing except sending like a couple private messages. But yeah, I fell for it. So I fell for 2 scams in the last like 3 months.
That's
so
okay.
I obviously need to pay attention next week.
Happens to everyone.
Yeah. So I'm going to pay strong attention next week. Take notes myself. It'll be all you.
Okay.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media. You can also find more information and resources at www.theaginggamepodcast.com.